Another stubborn Mozart myth is that his music was written down perfectly first time, as if dictated directly by God. I met Professor Cliff Eisen in the British Library to discover firsthand the scribbled, scratchy truth.
Have a look at this then. This is the final page of Mozart's own manuscript of the Hunt Quartet, which is the B-flat major vocal rating 458. Now look, this is the most defiant crossing out. This goes beyond a mistake. He didn't want anyone to see. We even through all this cross-hatching, you can hardly see what he's trying to rub out.
This is actually a passage that was meant to be inserted earlier in the piece, and then decided that he didn't want that insertion after all. So it represents 3, if not more, attempts to kind of go through the piece and decide what works and what doesn't work.
He's changing his mind. He's making. He's not always sure. Far from being always sure, he's not. In fact, many other pages in these 6 quartets dedicated to Haydn reveal the same thing.
All of these documents that are spread around us are treated and have been treated for close on 200 years as relics that we don't interrogate in any way to find out more about the person or more about the times. And yet they aren't relics. They're living documents of a variety of different processes and a variety of different times, places, activities that Mozart was involved with.
One of the most touching documents in all of Mozart's life is that thematic catalogue where he writes out the beginnings of his pieces from 1784 onwards. And the touching thing about that document, which is in the British Library and it can be seen, is not the lists of works, but the fact that when you get to the end of it, there are pages and pages of empty, unfilled staves.
The thematic catalogue of all of my works from February 1784 until the month, and he's left a space for the year. He's written 1 because he wasn't sure when this was going to be still the 18th century or indeed the beginning of the 19th century, and then a full stop, which of course he never finished because he died in 1791. So the first page then is the first list of pieces. He lived to fill in 29 of the 40 or so pages. Here's the very final page. Now, in a way, the most obviously moving thing about what happens is the empty pages. Look at the empty stages of the pieces he wouldn't write.
This doesn't conjure up for me the last moments of Mozart and the idea that it's some kind of testamentary page. The other thing that I'm impressed with is what people want to make of this. Right? It becomes one of the living, surviving artifacts of the fact of Mozart's premature death. It conjures up this story that we want to believe, this idea of a life cut off.
But Cliff, what's the problem with this? Clearly, look, just turning to this page of the next catalogue. This is a life unfit. It doesn't matter how we play it. In a way, to take the idea of what we might feel about it out of the equation. This was a life cut short. This clearly was a life cut short.
No, I don't mean in any way to diminish the impact of Mozart's premature death and all of the perfectly natural feelings and wishes and desires and hopes and aspirations that we might have that were unfulfilled because of it. Rather, I think what I'm saying is that Mozart becomes reified. Mozart becomes removed from, this is a great heroic mythical story in some ways. And so we then are afraid to approach Mozart. Okay. Because of the power of this story.
Because he's not like us.
He's not like us. He's not like us. I mean, and yet that seems like such an uncommonsensical thing, and it's an idea we don't attribute to other artists, right? And we've discussed, Shakespeare was a real person, Leonardo was a real person. They were all real people, but somehow Mozart became not an engaged, living, genuine human being anymore.